So I wanted to see if there's anyone you can raise your hand, or you can use the chat, or you can even use an emoji. Are there folks that need translation with us tonight?
Do you want to translate that, Eve?
Eve?
Let me go to a more secure internet connection.
Okay.
¿Hay alguien que ocupa traducción esta
Thanks,
noche?
Katie.
Si se puede alzar la mano o poner como un emoji o algo así para que podamos saber si sea necesario de que sí tenemos traducción esta noche o si inglés está bien para todo.
Sí.
Great. Katie, can we rely on you while Eve is relocating? Okay.
I'll
So-
do my best.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm so excited to see everybody here tonight for a night of some information. We're hoping that there'll be some opportunities for, or there will be opportunities for you guys to ask questions. If questions come up as we're talking, you can go ahead and put them in the chat. So at the bottom of your Zoom, there should be towards the middle a little quotation box or word box icon that you can click on, and you can just type in there your questions and press the return key, and that will allow us to see your questions. And if we can answer them at the time, we'll do that. And if not, we'll definitely have an opportunity at the end of our session tonight to be able to answer anyone's questions. I'll let Sonia introduce herself
Wait,
first.
can I say that in Spanish?
Oh, yes, please. Thanks, Katie.
Para los que están aquí esta noche, gracias por estar aquí. Estamos nosotros felices de tenerles y mientras estamos haciendo nuestra presentación, si ustedes tienen una pregunta, favor de escribirlo en donde está el chat. Ahí abajo hay una burbuja de hablar y se puede escoger esto y allí se puede escribir en la tecla su pregunta y entrégalo. Y mientras están hablando van a intentar contestarlo y si no, al final van a tener más tiempo para poder contestar sus preguntas.
Thanks, Katie. My name is Sonia Schiffer, and I'm the Education Specialist and Behaviorist for our school district.
Se llama Sonia Schiffer, está encargada de comportamiento y de especialista de educación especial por el distrito.
And I'm Cindy Freeberg. I'm the Director of Student Services for Old Adobe Union School District, for those of you that don't know me. And my background is as a school psychologist, and I'm also a licensed educational psychologist. I also thought it might be helpful to share that Sonia and I are also both moms. We're both moms that are working full-time during COVID. So hopefully that gives us also a little bit of street cred for everyone.
Ella es la señora Freeberg, es la directora de servicios estudiantiles del distrito, también es psicóloga. Las dos también son mamás que están trabajando todo su tiempo y también tienen hijos en la casa que están apoyando a la misma vez con sus estudios a distancia.
So here's an overview for tonight. We're going to talk about some key practices for success during distance learning, increasing student engagement, how to avoid power struggles using positive reinforcement systems. And then we're going to wrap it up with a little question and answer session and give you some resources to take away tonight.
So, para repasar lo que van a hacer esta noche, van a empezar con algunas prácticas claves que pueden usar para tener éxito durante el aprendizaje a distancia. Después van a hablar de cómo se puede aumentar el compromiso con sus hijos en sus clases y estudios. Van a hablar de cómo se puede evitar las luchas de poder mediante de sistemas de refuerzos positivos. También van a tener tiempo de pregunta y respuesta. y al final van a hablar de algunos recursos para apoyar las intervenciones para ustedes como papá, para ayudar a sus hijos.
So some things that we talk about tonight, maybe you are already doing, some things might be new. Hopefully some things that we go over to, you'll realize why they're working as well as they are, and you can continue doing those. So let's hear from you. What are you hoping to get out of Parent Night tonight? And you can share it in the chat.
So esta noche estamos aquí para apoyarles a ustedes. A lo mejor están haciendo algunas cosas, a lo mejor van a tener nuevas ideas, lo que es que está trabajando y funcionando para ustedes o van a aprender algo nuevo. Queremos asegurar que se puede decir esta noche ahorita por el chat por qué están aquí, qué es lo que ustedes están buscando para, qué quieren aprovechar o esperar de esta noche para aprender.
Hi, Cindy. Can you hear me now? This is a translator.
We can hear you now, Eve. Thank you.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
All right, Eve, I'm handing the reins off.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there anything you wanted to share from the chat, Sonia, before we move on?
So to learn a couple of new tools to work with my child, positive parenting tips, how to stay more patient and supportive in this stressful time while we're all juggling a lot. Reducing power struggles, how to get students to keep a area clean. How to help students when they become super frustrated and explosive.
Talk Alive World thingy.
We've got some tips for you tonight. Thank you. Incentive ideas, okay?
Terminó mi cosa.
Ways to keep my 13-year-old engaged and excited. Great, thank you guys.
Do you want me to translate any of that?
Yeah, please.
Los comentarios que la gente está incluyendo es que quieren aprender algunas nuevas herramientas para trabajar con sus hijos, ideas de ayudar a los niños que sean positivos, que sean más pacientes y apoyantes en estos tiempos de tanto estrés, disminuir las batallas de las luchas de poder, cómo ayudar a un estudiante a que mantenga su área de trabajo limpio, cómo ayudar a los estudiantes cuando se frustran demasiado y explotan, ideas de recompensas y maneras de cómo mantener a mi niño de 3 años que esté involucrado y animado.
So like Sonia touched on, right now in particular, there are so many things that are outside of our control, right? Even with COVID outstanding, just in everyday life, there are just a lot of things that are outside of our control. Whether you're parenting as a single parent, whether you're having to work an extensive amount of hours, if your children are sick, if you're sick, I mean, there's so many different life circumstances that we all just have to manage. And so what we wanted to talk about tonight was giving you guys some strategies, giving you some things that you can implement, if not everything, some things that you can implement on a day-to-day basis so that you are as in control and have the best setup to handle the different things that are going to come your way as a parent.
Como mencionó la otra maestra, hay tantas cosas que están fuera de nuestro control. Todos estamos pasando por esto. Hay cosas difíciles, puede ser que ustedes solo un padre que trabaja muchas horas, que usted está enfermo, que su hijo está enfermo. Las circunstancias son muy difíciles y lo que nosotros queremos proporcionarles son estrategias que ustedes pueden utilizar día a día para superar esta situación.
What we wanted to touch on initially, before we get into some strategies, are just the basic needs of all kids. Many of you guys are probably familiar with like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that everybody has basic needs, whatever circumstances you're living within, right? So things like food, shelter, safety, clothing, warmth, those are just basic needs that every human being has, right? And kids are included in that. Beyond that, kids also have basic needs that really have to be met before we can implement some of the things that we're talking about tonight. So while psychological or behaviorally driven strategies, again, many of which we'll talk about tonight, are effective, and everything that we're sharing is evidence-based and shown to work for kids. But in order to have those things be successful with your kids, there really are basic everyday expectations that kids have for their needs to be met in order for them to be effective. So beyond just the basic needs, kids have emotional needs. They need to have a sense of trust with parents. They need to get enough attention, have a sense of connection, and be recognized for who they are. Attention is often a big one, attention and sleep, and really having an emotional connection with parents are things that really are required before some of these strategies can be effective as effective as possible. So when we're looking at kids that have a need for attention, for example, that kids are going to do whatever that they need to do in order to get that need met. You may have heard before that the next powerful thing other than positive attention is negative attention, right? So if kids are in need of attention from adults, whether that's whatever the reason behind it, they will probably act in a certain way so that they can get that attention from adults, whatever strategies you put into place. And so it is important when we're thinking about implementing some of these strategies that we're really looking at some of the basic needs of kids and trying to strategize about how we can get kids what they need on a basic level. Beyond that, things like family expectations, having routine, consistency, family roles, and building their independence. Those are all things that we'll talk about a little bit more tonight.
Okay, I'm going to do my best to translate all of that. Maybe next time we can take a little bit of a break. Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, voy a intentar traducir todo lo que mencionó la directora, pero muchos de nosotros estamos familiarizados con las necesidades básicas a un nivel psicológico, que eso es de comida, refugio, seguridad, dormir. Pero luego hay otras necesidades bastante básicas, lo que es lo emocional, el poder tener intimidad, la confianza, la atención. Y durante toda nuestra plática hoy, donde estamos platicando acerca de cambiar los comportamientos, sí estamos tratando de hablar acerca de que las necesidades básicas de los niños se tienen que llenar primero antes de que podamos acontecer algo más. Entonces, aunque lo que estamos presentando hoy, esta noche, está basado en evidencia y sí es muy efectivo, tenemos que acordarnos que los niños tenemos que llenar sus expectativas diarias primero, antes de poder llegar a lo siguiente. Entonces, sabemos que el tener la atención de uno, el dormir lo suficiente es muy importante, pero que si esta necesidad de atención no la llenamos, todos sabemos que podemos encontrar la atención de la mala o de la buena. Entonces, tenemos que presentar estrategias que acontecen o llenan las necesidades básicas y llenar esto a un nivel básico antes de que podamos seguir a lo que llamamos las expectativas familiares o las rutinas o lo demás.
So tonight we're going to go through some different strategies and tips to help set you guys up for success. One of the things to consider in thinking about the different strategies that we'll talk about is that putting some effort into these strategies and doing some advanced planning can be an investment in the long-term success of your family routines and the success of how your daily life runs with your kiddos. So some of this stuff would take a little bit of advanced planning and a little bit of work, but we really look at it as an investment in time, because once things are set up in your household, you'll find that you're going to spend less time negotiating, getting into power struggles, that kind of thing. So what we'll talk about is having age-appropriate expectations that are also realistic, routines and sleep, developing a workspace, focus and attention, how you and other adults will respond, and then a little bit about parental self-care.
Entonces, mucho de lo que vamos a estar platicando ahora es cómo podemos prepararnos para tener éxito. Y aunque sí consideramos que es una inversión en la planificación y el establecer la configuración positiva, todo esto, aunque toma tiempo, establecerlo a largo plazo reduce el tiempo que uno puede estar gastando en reaccionar a algo, en las frustraciones. Entonces, vamos a estar hablando hoy acerca de las expectativas realistas y apropiadas por edad, las rutinas, la importancia de dormir, tener un espacio enfocado para el trabajo. Vamos a platicar del enfoque y la atención, cómo mantener estos y cómo van a responder ustedes y otros adultos alrededor de los niños y el cuidado personal también de los padres de familia.
In implementing any parenting strategies, it's important to consider that you are your child's first teacher. That whether we're talking about TK students or sixth grade students, children are not small adults. And that, even as a parent myself, is something that I have to remind myself at times, that when we're supporting our children, part of our role as a parent is to help them develop the coping skills and resilience and give them the boundaries that they really want and need to help them grow up into responsible, independent, successful adults. So when we're interacting with our kids, whether it's during a distance learning time or even a downtime within your family, it is important to be mindful of how you respond to situations. And you're teaching your children by how you respond to situations, to your own challenges in your own life, to things that go on with your children, that every time you respond in those situations, you're modeling for them how they could potentially respond.
Can I translate that?
Yeah.
Tenemos que acordarnos que usted es el primer maestro de su hijo, ya sea de un estudiante de TK hasta el sexto grado. Tenemos que acordarnos que los niños no son adultos pequeños. La directora tiene que acordar ella misma de esto, teniendo hijos, y que nuestra responsabilidad es de ayudar a los niños a desarrollar habilidades de tratar con situaciones, de aprender la resiliencia, de aprender qué límites tienen que establecer para que ellos puedan crecer a ser adultos con buenas habilidades. Entonces, tenemos que estar presentes de cómo respondemos nosotros y qué tipo de interacción tenemos con los estudiantes. Y acuérdese que cada vez que usted tenga una interacción con los niños, está usted modelando lo que usted quiere que ellos hagan.
Thank you, Eve. I want to also just bring to our attention that there is no such thing as a perfect parent. That again, with the strategies we're sharing tonight, our hope is that folks could pick a couple of those and try and implement those. But in thinking about yourself being your child's first teacher, it is important to give yourself grace and really appreciate the reality that there is no such thing as a perfect parent. And your children are not looking for a perfect parent. They're looking for someone that can help put up some boundaries, give them some direction, and modeling about how they can handle different situations, that as they grow through the different stages, they take those traits on their own and are able to use those skills for their own life and problem solving.
Entonces, queremos acordarles durante esta conversación que no hay una cosa tal como un padre perfecto. Nosotros estamos tratando de aprender algunas estrategias que ustedes pueden escoger uno que otro y implementarlos, pero acuérdense que se tiene que dar gracia a ustedes mismos, que nadie es perfecto. Y los niños no están buscando la perfección, lo que ellos están buscando es que nosotros les demos la dirección, que modelamos cómo podemos tratar situaciones diferentes y que ellos aprendan entonces estas habilidades y que se lleven consigo mismos esto mientras ellos están llegando a ser adultos.
And recognizing ourselves as imperfect parents can also be a really powerful model of how to handle different situations. Modeling coping skills could be letting your kids know that you need a timeout, letting your kids know if it's during distance learning, for example, this is really hard. It's hard for you. It's also hard for me and I need a break. Or let's go take a walk and then we'll try again. Really owning that, your humanity and that you are an imperfect parent actually can help your own child recognize that in themselves and help them develop coping skills.
El reconocer que uno no es perfecto es parte de modelar buenas habilidades de poder aguantar una situación. Quizá durante su habilidad de tratar con algo difícil es que usted modele que le diga a los niños, ¿saben qué? Yo necesito tomar unos minutos para volver a enfocarme o calmarme. No hay problema con mencionarle a los niños que durante este aprendizaje a distancia esto es difícil para usted, que también es difícil para ellos y que quizá lo que usted necesite hacer es ir a tomar una caminata. El demostrar que usted es un ser humano también es de mucha ayuda para establecer estas habilidades en los niños.
As we move into how to implement some behavioral support strategies, some more basic parenting everyday supports for your kids include things like having ground rules for every situation. And this doesn't mean that you need to have a list of rules per se, but it does mean that implementing boundaries and having a set of expectations for kids in different situations that's really clear and really, really consistent helps them, again, have a sense of control and have a sense of how they're supposed to act or perform in any situation.
Entonces, mientras nosotros estamos platicando acerca de cómo vamos a implementar estas estrategias de comportamiento, una cosa que usted puede hacer es establecer unas reglas básicas en la casa. No tiene que ser expectativas para cada situación, pero sí hay expectativas en general y reglas en general que les puede dar un sentido de control a los niños para que sepan cómo tratar ciertas situaciones.
So for example, if it's dinner time and your family eats at a table together for dinner time, what are the ground rules or the expectations for that time? And are they the same every night? If it's school time and during the school day and during the synchronous time, what are the expectations during that time for kiddos? And is that the same? every day? If you're out in public at the grocery store, what are the ground rules that you've established? And again, this doesn't have to be a list of rules, but it really is about your family's expectations and what is communicated to them about the expectations in all of those different specific situations.
Pues una cosa de la que tenemos que considerar es que, por ejemplo, durante la hora de comer, ¿cuáles son las reglas o qué expectativas tienen ustedes del comportamiento cuando están comiendo juntos? Esas expectativas son las mismas en cada día, en cada situación de cenar juntos. ¿Cuáles son las expectativas de los niños cuando están asistiendo a la escuela a distancia por medio de Zoom? Esas expectativas son las mismas todos los días y no se trata tanto de tener una lista de reglas, sino de estar consciente de cuáles son las expectativas y qué está comunicando usted acerca de estos y cuál es la consistencia entre ellas.
And in considering yourself as your child's first teacher, it's important to always, or as much as possible, knowing your imperfectness, to give clear, calm, age-appropriate directions and requests. Again, if you think about interacting with your child in terms of modeling behavior or modeling coping skills, how you react to their misbehavior, they're not following directions, they're getting up out of bed for the 10th time at night. As difficult as it is, they're looking to you to demonstrate and model those coping skills by remaining calm, not getting into power struggles with them, as tired as you are and as challenging as that can be. Those are times where they're really looking to you to keep, to observe how you can keep your composure and exhibit that control over your own emotions.
Entonces, manteniendo la idea de que usted es el primer maestro de su hijo, y acordándonos que no somos perfectos, una de las cosas que tenemos que acordarnos de hacer es que tenemos que dar instrucciones y solicitudes claras, tranquilas y apropiadas para la edad. Y la forma en la que usted reacciona cuando su hijo no tiene buen comportamiento, esto es muy importante porque ellos los están mirando a ustedes para ver cómo modelar el comportamiento y cómo sobresale ustedes una situación difícil. Entonces, aunque es muy difícil, si es la quinta vez que los manda a la cama a dormir, ellos están mirando cómo es que usted puede mantenerse calmado, que no se enfurezca y así entonces no entran ustedes en luchas de control y observan cómo es que usted puede mantener la calma.
Before we get into our strategies, I did also want to just touch again on sleep. When we think back to the chart we showed earlier about the basic needs of kids, that routines and sleep really are the foundation of being able to set boundaries and set your family and your children up for success. That kids that are not getting enough sleep are really put at risk for all kinds of behaviors that are going to be really, really difficult for you to overcome. So again, if all parents have experienced when their kids have lacked a sufficient night of sleep, and they're more tearful, their moods are more irregular, and sometimes some of the behaviors that kids exhibit when they've really missed a lot of sleep can be absolutely intense. So if you think about kids just not getting quite enough sleep each night, that also can build up over time and really contribute to behavioral issues. It can also contribute to inattention, poor alertness, it impacts happiness, mood, and it also impacts learning.
Entonces, acordándonos de esa gráfica al principio donde estamos comentando de las necesidades básicas psicológicas, La fundación de poder establecer límites y de tener éxito con el comportamiento sí son las rutinas y el dormir. Todos sabemos que cuando a los niños les falta horas de dormir, demuestran comportamientos que son difíciles de sobresalir. Todos hemos visto esto y hemos a veces visto que la falta del dormir aumenta la intensidad de estos comportamientos no deseados. Entonces les queremos acordar que la falta de dormir sí es como se sobre encima un día al otro y esto contribuye a falta de atención, la vigilancia, obviamente el estado del humor, la felicidad y también obviamente el aprendizaje.
Children in elementary school should get between 9 and 12 hours of sleep each night.
Los niños de la escuela primaria a la secundaria de 6 a 12 años deben de dormir entre 9 y 12 horas cada noche.
And not getting enough sleep each night can contribute to learning and cognition issues, poor memory, lack of that vocabulary development, and also can impact motor skills development.
Y la falta de dormir esta cantidad de tiempo sí puede contribuir a la falta de aprendizaje y condición, la falta de memoria, el vocabulario que no crece y el que sea afectado el desarrollo de habilidades motoras.
And we have on our website, we're going to be adding more, but there's already some resources on our website about building bedtime routines. And Sonia Schiffer is a great resource. You can always get in touch with our Student Services Office if you ever want more information about building bedtime routines or helping with sleep in your home.
Y tenemos en el sitio de internet escolar recursos acerca de cómo ayudar a los niños a dormir. Tenemos estrategias de cómo establecer las rutinas para ir a la cama y dormir. Y también está el Departamento de Servicios Estudiantiles. Tenemos muchos recursos ahí. También la maestra Sonia Schiffer es un buen recurso.
Unmute myself. So we're still talking about those foundational supports, and then we'll get into some specific behavior strategies.
Entonces aún estamos platicando acerca de los apoyos fundamentales y después de esto hablaremos de las estrategias prácticas.
So one of the things that we want to look at when during distance learning, one of the foundational supports is creating a successful workspace.
Y una de las cosas fundamentales que tenemos que establecer presentemente durante el aprendizaje a distancia es de crear un espacio de trabajo exitoso.
And I realize that that how much space we have in our house is sometimes limited, especially if you have multiple kids and you're working from home.
Y sé que en la casa muchas veces la cantidad de espacio que tenemos es limitado si hay varias personas que viven en casa o si usted está trabajando de casa.
But to the best of your ability, we should make sure that our kiddos have a designated workspace, so they're working at the same place every day. That's free of distractions. For example, television or toys in the room could be competing for their attention.
Y lo más posible es importante encontrar un espacio de trabajo designado donde puedan trabajar consistentemente en ese espacio, que sea libre de distracciones, por ejemplo, la tele o juguetes que están compitiendo por su atención.
A desk or a table is better than the sofa or a recliner, so the students are sitting upright, their posture's good and they're comfortable and able to see their screen.
Una mesa y una silla que es cómoda y es apropiada para el cuerpo del niño es mejor que un sofá o sillas que se reclinan donde no pueden estar sentados derechos para ver su pantalla.
They could decorate their space with personal mementos or photos to help it feel more like their school space.
Pueden ellos, podrían permitirlos que decoren su espacio con fotos o recuerdos especiales para que sientan más que es su espacio de ellos mismos.
And tools like headphones, if they have headphones with a microphone, or study corrals, which are the cardboard kind of dividers that sit up on the table space, can help to minimize distraction.
Y si pueden ustedes usar audífonos o también hay formas de poner como pedazos de cartulina alrededor de la mesa para disminuir la cantidad de distracciones que tengan.
In the study corrals, you could even make them with cardboard at home, or you could contact your teacher. And we have many in the classrooms that we use with kids. We could send some of those home or have them available for pickup.
Y estas encerraduras de cartulina ustedes las pueden hacer en casa o también se pueden comunicar con los maestros. Los tenemos aquí en la escuela y los pueden venir a recoger.
And then organization is a big skill for kids that's ever developing. And if you can help them organize their class materials, consider like colored folders for each subject, and then teach them how to put their papers in the right folders. That can be helpful too.
Y el enseñarle a los niños a desarrollar la habilidad de organización es muy importante. Entonces, considere ayudándoles a organizar sus materiales, proporcionándoles archivos de colores con etiquetas y enseñándoles cómo organizarlos para que se puedan mantener parados y que los puedan encontrar fácilmente durante la clase.
And then having an end of the day routine where they go through their materials and reorganize so they're ready for the next day, plug in their iPads or their Chromebooks. I do this with my son most of the time. The papers end up in the right folders, but it's helpful. And then when they're ready to start school the next morning, they don't need to be rushed and trying to organize when they're getting onto Zoom.
También es buena idea ayudarles a establecer la rutina de acabar su día y esta rutina consiste en organizar su espacio, en apagar la computadora, enchufarla para poder cargarla para el día siguiente y preparar su espacio para el día siguiente en el aprendizaje. La maestra hace esto con su hijo y está aprendiendo él a ser un poco más organizado.
And then there's things that we can do, extra little things that we can do to support focus and attention. For example, providing opportunities for movement, allowing students to stand at the table or at their desk while they're working, or allowing movement breaks with clearly defined rules, how long they can take a break or what that looks like.
Y también podemos apoyar el enfoque y la atención al proporcionar oportunidades para movimiento. Esto puede ser algo tan simple como darles la oportunidad de pararse o de moverse con límites definidos de cuándo tienen que regresar a trabajar.
Fidgets can be helpful, not for all kids, but for some kids it could be helpful. So if you think that they can use it without it being too distracting, things like stress balls or Play-Doh, maybe some drawing paper to sketch while they're listening to lectures. And then there's also chairs that move, wiggle chairs or seat cushions. Some people I've seen have taken tennis balls and put them, on the diagonal ends of the chairs so the chair can wobble.
Otra idea es de usar juguetes de manipulación. Esto no funciona con todos los niños, pero para aquellos donde sí es bueno, serían cosas como una pelota para el estrés, quizá un papel para que ellos estén dibujando mientras estén escuchando al maestro. También tenemos sillas de movimiento. He visto a gente que pone, o tenemos cojines que le ponen para que los niños se puedan mover los cojines mientras están sentados, o cortan pelotas de tenis en un ángulo para que cuando el niño esté sentado en la silla se mueve de un lado al otro.
For some of our students, we've worked out breaks with the teacher where they can turn their camera off for a set amount of time to give them a break while they're still listening to instruction. So that could be a way to allow breaks also.
Otra manera de ofrecer un descanso es en coordinación con la maestra. Le hemos permitido a ciertos alumnos de poder apagar su video mientras por un tiempo para que no estén en el video todo el tiempo, pero esto tiene que ser definido con la maestra, pero es también una opción de proporcionar un descanso.
And for some students, a snack might be helpful, and you would want to run it by the classroom teacher and see what their classroom rules are. But snacks, gum can be really helpful for focus, especially with, or make it age appropriate, probably maybe not for first or second grade, but older kids. And then also having a water bottle at the desk or table.
Entonces, el poder proporcionar algo de comer como una botana puede ser de ayuda durante el aprendizaje a distancia, con tal de que uno esté en contacto con la maestra y estén de acuerdo que eso está bien. Quizá el chicle puede ayudar mucho en el enfoque, pero tendría que ser apropiado de edad, quizá no para un estudiante de kinder o primero o segundo grado. Y también teniendo una botella de agua en la mesa.
And then I have organizational support again on here because that's just such a big one for kids, and they can miss a lot of instruction trying to rifle through their things and finding the correct materials that they need. So reminders for them how to be organized. You may have to demonstrate organization for them depending on their age. Checklists can be very helpful, having an end of the day routine with a checklist of how to organize.
Entonces tengo aquí también la nota del apoyo de organización, porque la falta de organización afecta mucho el enfoque. Entonces, ayudándoles a los estudiantes a aprender a escribirse recordatorios o poner los recordatorios, demostrándoles a ellos cómo mantener la organización y también teniendo una lista de verificación son de mucha ayuda.
And checklists are great for a lot of things in your home, like morning routines. If you're having to repeat directions a lot to your kids or give a lot of reminders in the morning to get ready and get on Zoom on time, you could use a checklist for that too.
Las listas de verificación son de mucha ayuda, especialmente en las mañanas o cualquier tiempo donde usted le tiene que estar dando muchos recordatorios al estudiante. Si usted tiene una lista de verificación de qué es lo que tienen que tener listos para el comienzo del día de escolar, esto ayuda mucho.
And then I touched on this a little bit, but partnering with your child's teacher can be a great support for you if you're not already doing that. So letting your teacher know if there's a problem.
Entonces, si no lo he mencionado anteriormente, el colaborar con los maestros, especialmente si hay algún problema, es de mucha ayuda también.
And teachers want to know if there's a problem. They want to help. Many times the teachers don't know until the parent is already frustrated, and then that can be frustration on both sides. So reaching out with your child's teacher and developing a plan to try to troubleshoot those problems and agree on supports that both of you can do and think will be helpful.
Entonces, muchas veces, bueno, primeramente los maestros quieren ayudar a los padres de familia y muchas veces los maestros no saben que hay algún problema hasta que llega el punto donde los padres y los estudiantes ya están frustrados. Esto causa frustración de todos los lados. Entonces, es importante colaborar con el maestro y quizá puedan desarrollar un plan para solucionar problemas que les ayude a los dos.
And then to the best of your ability with working and juggling all that you are doing, just being familiar with what your teacher is assigning your child can be helpful too, so you know what the expectations are. And Cindy and I are both resources. We also have tech support through our district, and you can find that online if you need help with how to navigate Google Classroom, or if you're not sure how to see what assignments are missing.
Entonces, otra cosa importante es, encima de todo lo más de lo que está haciendo, que es de beneficio saber cuáles son las tareas y las expectativas del maestro para su hijo o hija. Y menciona la maestra que ella y la directora Cindy sirven de recursos para ustedes. También hay apoyo técnico si es que ustedes necesitan apoyo para aprender cómo entrar a Google Classroom o cómo usar la plataforma.
And if you are struggling at home, don't be afraid to have regular communication with your teacher weekly or as often as needed. A teacher told me this week, or right before we went on break, she said, I have no idea how I'm doing. I have no idea how well it's going. So I think the teachers really appreciate the feedback right now too.
Y menciona la maestra que escuchó de una maestra esta semana que la maestra dijo, sinceramente no sé cómo va la enseñanza ahorita. Entonces menciona esto porque a los maestros ellos también quieren saber de ustedes cómo van las cosas en casa. Entonces les recomiendan que consulten con el maestro frecuentemente, quizás semanalmente o tan a menudo como sea necesario para ustedes, pero es buena idea estar en contacto con el maestro.
So I'm going to talk about what positive reinforcement is, and then I'm going to introduce two behavior interventions for you that you could try at home that will help with avoiding power struggles, and it'll be fun and keep things positive in your house. We said the training was going to go until 7:15 tonight, but we're translating a little bit differently than we were going to. So I'm going to go ahead and keep going through this, but if you need to leave, I want you to know that the slides and our presentation is being recorded and it will be posted on the district website.
Entonces ahora voy a estar platicando acerca de dos intervenciones para comportamiento. Sí platicamos acerca de que esta presentación terminaría pronto, pero por el hecho de que estamos traduciendo de una manera diferente de lo que habíamos planeado, pensamos que va a tardar un poquito más, pero esta presentación sí se está grabando y la vamos a poner en el sitio del internet para que lo puedan tener de referencia después.
Okay, thanks. So when we implement behavior interventions, we always want to focus on strategies that use positive reinforcement.
Cuando estamos implementando intervenciones positivas, siempre queremos tener intervenciones que se enfocan en el refuerzo positivo de comportamiento.
And using strategies like rewards is not bribery. I know some people feel like giving your kids rewards for having them work for something is bribing them.
Y el reforzar comportamiento positivo no es, por decir, una mordida. Yo sé que algunas personas sienten que este sistema es como un sistema de mordidas, pero no lo es.
The word bribery refers to illegal activity, but the definition of positive reinforcement means to increase behavior, and that is really our goal, is to increase the desired behavior.
Entonces, la definición de la mordida es de actividad no legal, pero la definición del refuerzo positivo es de que uno quiere aumentar un comportamiento específico. Entonces, nuestra meta es de aumentar un comportamiento deseado.
And using positive reinforcement is, repeated studies have shown that it's a lot more effective in changing behavior and producing long-lasting behavior change. And I'll let you interpret that part.
El usar refuerzo positivo, estudios repetidos demuestran que esto es más eficaz y que produce cambios duraderos a largo plazo.
And it helps skills generalize quicker, and it really teaches kids to take ownership of their behavior.
Ayuda a que las habilidades se generalicen más rápidamente y les enseña a los niños a ser responsables por sus comportamientos.
Okay. So when we're implementing, I kind of skipped around, Cindy, sorry. When we're implementing positive behavior interventions at home, this is what it looks like. You want to know what you want, so you're going to select a behavior.
Entonces, cuando estemos implementando intervenciones de comportamiento, esto es cómo se aparenta. Primero queremos saber cuál es el comportamiento que usted quiere.
Teach what you want, so explicitly teach and explain, model to the child what it is you want them to do.
Entonces, enseñe lo que usted quiere, modélele exactamente lo que usted quiere que sea el comportamiento.
And then when that happens, we want to reinforce that so that that behavior occurs again and again. So we're going to reinforce the behavior.
Entonces, cuando ocurra el comportamiento que usted quiera, es entonces cuando lo reforzamos para que vuelva a ocurrir una y otra vez.
And then we're going to take a look and see if it worked. Did we get what we want? And we'll talk about with these systems, kind of it's built in, the recording is built in.
Y luego vamos a checar si el sistema produció el comportamiento que nosotros quisimos. Y la forma de checar esto ya está desarrollado dentro del sistema.
Okay, Cindy, can you advance it to the behavior contracts? Thanks. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to talk about is using behavior contracts at home. And another term for behavior contract is a contingency contract. And all it is an agreement between two parties. And you can think about, we use performance contracts, we have employment contracts, with our employers. So it's a real life thing, and it teaches your kids real life skills.
Entonces, la primera forma de cambiar el comportamiento es lo que llamamos el contrato de comportamiento, y básicamente también tiene un nombre del contrato de contingencia, y básicamente es un acuerdo entre dos personas. Lo usamos en el día normal, en todos los días. Lo usamos para el desempeño en los deportes, también en el trabajo, y es una cosa básica en términos de comportamiento.
And when I say the term contingency, one thing is contingent on another. So to help you remember it, you can think about grandma's law. First, you eat your vegetables, and then you can have a cookie.
Entonces, cuando hablo de contingencia, básicamente quiere decir que una cosa está basada en otra. Y hay lo que le dicen la ley de la abuelita, que le dice, bueno, si es que comes la cena, entonces te doy una galleta.
The stronger the contingency, the more effective your behavior intervention is going to be.
Será más efectiva la contingencia, lo más firme y consistente que sea.
So if this happens and only if this happens, then you can have this.
Entonces, básicamente dice, si es que esto ocurre y solo si es que esto ocurre, entonces ocurrirá lo otro.
And setting contingencies like this is really what reduces or eliminates power struggles, because if you have a contingency in place, it's transferring the responsibility of the behavior over to the child, and there's no room for negotiation or argument.
Entonces, el establecer esto básicamente elimina las luchas de poder porque cambia la responsabilidad al lado del niño y le enseña a él que son dueños de su comportamiento y así no hay la lucha.
So when you're doing a behavior contract with your child, you want it to be, for your sake and your child's, you want it to be short and clear.
Entonces, cuando hace este tipo de contrato para beneficio de usted y de su hijo, quiere que sea corto y claro.
And you want to get their buy-in. Remember, it's an agreement between two people. So we want to get your child's input so that it's motivating for them.
Entonces, es importante que usted consiga aprobación y que por medio de eso, así obteniendo sugerencias de ellos, que ellos estén involucrados y deseosos de participar.
I'm going to show you in just a minute. I'll show you an example of two contracts that you could use at home. But I wanted to talk about selecting a behavior real quick.
Le voy a enseñar en un momento ejemplos de dos contratos que pueden establecer en casa, pero ahorita les quiero enseñar cómo escoger el comportamiento en el que se quieren enfocar.
So this was step 1, know what you want.
El primer paso es sepa lo que quiera.
The behavior should be really specific and measurable. If you were to describe the behavior to someone, they should be able to visualize exactly what you mean. And I have some examples of what an observable behavior would be and something that would be hard to define.
Entonces, el comportamiento en el que quiere escoger debe ser específico, observable y que lo puedan medir. Es algo que cuando uno describa el comportamiento, alguien pueda imaginarlo claramente. Tengo aquí ejemplos de comportamientos que uno puede observar y luego ejemplos de comportamientos que son difíciles de definir y observar.
I'll go back one more time. Go back just for a minute, Cindy. Thanks. So you can see if you were to write a behavior contract with your child and you agreed that their behavior was going to be a good attitude, they were going to have a good attitude during school that day, you could see how this might be problematic because your definition of good attitude could be very different than what they feel like their attitude was like, or even what they remembered. But if you have specific goals like completing a specific task, turning in homework, asking for help, or sitting at their desk, those are things that both of you could agree on. They either happened or they didn't happen pretty easily.
Entonces, cuando usted esté escribiendo un contrato o estableciendo este contrato con su hijo, si uno establece la cosa que van a estar observando como una buena actitud, esto podría causar problemas porque cada quien tiene su definición de actitud y luego uno no se acuerda bien de lo que ocurre. Entonces es mejor establecer un comportamiento observable, tal como acabar una tarea específica, entregar tu tarea, pedir ayuda o mantenerte sentado en tu escritorio.
Okay, so here's here's a behavior contract for Michael. The behavior is clearly defined. So for Michael, I agree to finish all of my homework, including any work returned by my teacher for corrections at least 4 out of 5 days this week.
Entonces aquí es un contrato con Michael y dice, yo estoy de acuerdo que voy a acabar toda mi tarea, incluyendo cualquier trabajo que me regresó la maestra para corregirlo, y lo voy a hacer por lo menos 4 de 5 días de la semana. Entonces podemos ver que esto es muy claro.
And Michael's presumably agreed with this. He's had input, and his prize, if he does this, is that he will choose a movie and dinner on Friday night.
Entonces suponemos que Michael sí participó y tuvo sugerencias en establecer este contrato, y la recompensa que recibe es que va a poder ver una película y escoger lo que cena el viernes.
So mom's going to make sure that the contingency is strong. And so that means if he does this, and only if he does this, he's going to be able to choose his movie and what they eat Friday night.
La madre va a estar segura de que la contingencia sea fuerte, que si ocurre esto y solo si ocurre esto, entonces ocurrirá lo otro, para que Michael pueda cumplir su parte del contrato.
And if Michael doesn't meet this, mom's going to feel bad for him, but she's not going to give in, because she knows that holding up a strong contingency is what's gonna make the behavior change.
Entonces, si Michael no cumple con esto, la madre se va a sentir mal por él, pero ella sabe que es importante mantenerse firme a lo que acordaron en el contrato, para que la contingencia funcione y que cambie el comportamiento.
And we'll talk about troubleshooting if a plan doesn't work at the end here. But here's another example of a contract. There's all kinds of contracts. If you Google them or go on Pinterest, you can pull up lots of behavior contracts, or you can just make your own on a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. On this one, there's an area down below where you can take data or just track whether or not it's happening.
Entonces, vamos a platicar acerca de cómo resolver problemas con contratos después, pero los contratos hay una gran variedad. Si usted busca en Google, en Pinterest, hay un montón de ideas. Este es un contrato bastante básico de un trabajo y la recompensa, y abajo tiene un lugar donde usted puede seguir anotando si el trabajo se ha acontecido.
So when you're doing a behavior contract, I would recommend that you pick out the behavior to target, but then let your child pick out rewards that they want to earn. And they could even decorate their own contract to make it, more personable, or you could let them write the contract and make an agreement with them just to make sure that they're part of the process.
Entonces, cuando haga un contrato de este tipo con su hijo, le recomiendo que participe el niño, pero que usted escoja el comportamiento que quiera cambiar. Le puede permitir al niño que decore el contrato o que lo escriba mientras ustedes lo estén mencionando o platicando.
And then you want to make sure that the reward that they want to earn is really motivating. So for instance, some parents use screen time for part of the contracts. And I'll tell you a story that I was working with a child, and I was using screen time for a reward for him. But then right before I got online with him, his mom downloaded a new game on her phone, and he was playing that first. And so that kind of wiped out the reinforcement value of him being able to have screen time with me. So just to keep those things in mind. And when you're choosing rewards, make sure that you're keeping them novel and they only have access to those rewards for behavior that you've outlined, and that will help it be more effective.
Entonces, cuando usted esté escogiendo la recompensa, acuérdese de que tiene que ser una recompensa que sea algo novedoso, que no sea algo que comúnmente tengan acceso a él. Si no, no van a poder cambiar el comportamiento. Da un ejemplo la maestra que la recompensa para el niño al acabar sus tareas era de que tuviera tiempo en la pantalla, pero desgraciadamente justo antes de que el niño entrara a hacer el trabajo con la maestra, su mamá había bajado a su teléfono una nueva aplicación que era un juguete de video, un juego de video, y el niño había jugado el juego. Entonces, cuando era tiempo de hacer el trabajo con la maestra, su recompensa ya no funcionaba. Entonces, cuando estemos estableciendo estas recompensas, tener en mente todas las diferentes áreas de donde pueda la recompensa ser utilizada para que siga siendo efectivo.
And then the other system I wanted to show you tonight is called a token economy or a token system. And these can be very, very effective. When you think about money as a currency, it's the most powerful economy, token economy ever created. So you can have a lot of success with this.
Y el otro sistema de recompensas es un sistema de fichas. Este es un sistema que usamos presentemente. El dinero es un sistema de moneda, es la economía de fichas más poderosa que se ha creado. Entonces, este sistema puede ser muy bueno para cambiar comportamientos. Es muy eficaz.
And it's just what it sounds like. Your child would earn tokens, and then they would use those tokens and cash them in for a reward at a later time.
Y es un sistema como suena. Los niños ganan fichas por comportamiento y luego los pueden entregar e intercambiar para una recompensa en otra fecha.
And part of what makes it really effective is the reinforcement is immediate, so they get that token right away, and then it's visual, so the parent and the child can see their progress towards it.
Una razón por la que es tan eficaz es porque reciben la recompensa inmediatamente y es una recompensa visual. Entonces, padre e hijo pueden ver el sistema inmediatamente.
And it teaches your child the money system. It teaches them ownership of their behavior. It helps to avoid power struggles because, again, it's shifting the responsibility for the behavior over to them, and you're not having to keep repeating the same requests and nagging.
Entonces, esto no solo ayuda a enseñarle a los niños el sistema de dinero, pero también les enseña a tomar responsabilidad por su comportamiento, moviendo la responsabilidad del lado del estudiante, el aprender a monitorear el comportamiento de uno mismo y ayuda a prevenir las luchas de poder y que uno no tenga que estar encima del hijo pidiéndole de hacer las cosas.
Okay, so when you begin a token system, you want to choose your behavior, just like the behavior contracts. You want to make sure it's clearly defined, and you want to start small. So something you know that they can achieve, so you can start building some behavior momentum.
Entonces, cuando empiece este sistema de fichas, quiere usted escoger un comportamiento, empiece con algo pequeño en que enfocarse.
And then you want to use the token, choose the token that you're going to use. So it could be like movie tickets, you know, those like raffle tickets, you can get them at the dollar store. You could use stickers on a chart or stamps. You could use, I've heard of people using pennies or coins. You could use marbles.
Entonces, lo siguiente es escoger la ficha. Ya puede ser un boleto, lo puede comprar en la tienda de $1, etiquetas, estampillas. He visto gente que usa monedas, fichas de póker.
And the nice thing about the token system is you can target multiple behaviors. So you could work on more than one thing with your child. So you could even mix it with, say, you want them to empty the dishwasher or take out the trash, and you have some school goals for them as well.
Entonces, lo bonito de este sistema es que uno puede estar trabajando en varios comportamientos a la vez. Por ejemplo, uno puede estar trabajando en la tarea, al igual que guardar los trastes y también sacar la basura.
And then you need to take into consideration, so choosing those behaviors, what has to happen for them to earn the token. How many tokens is it going to take for them to get a reward? So for example, do they need to earn 20 tokens to have like a virtual play date with a friend? So you need to establish how many tokens it's going to take for them to earn the reward.
Tiene usted que establecer cuántas fichas van a tener que ganar para recibir la recompensa. Entonces, por ejemplo, van a tener que ganar 20 fichas para que ellos puedan tener un juego con sus amistades a distancia por medio de video.
And then when are they going to be able to trade their tokens in for their reward? You want to make sure that you're sticking to your end of the agreement. So if they earned all their rewards this week, when are they going to be able to do that special thing? You don't want to push it out and wait too long. Otherwise, it will it'll be discouraging for them and it won't be as effective.
También tiene que definir que cuándo pueden intercambiar las fichas para la recompensa. Si ganan todas las fichas para el fin de esta semana, para el viernes, no es buena idea esperar mucho tiempo después de haber ganado todas las fichas antes de proporcionar la recompensa, o si no, no es efectivo el sistema.
And then finally, you want to make sure that you're giving the token right after the behavior occurs. So right after they do something they were supposed to be doing, you want to give them the token and then give them some praise and let them know specifically why they're getting the token. So good job. I saw you sitting in your seat all morning before break. That was great. And give them a token or 2 tokens, how much ever you decided that was worth.
Entonces es muy importante dar la ficha justo después de que el comportamiento deseado ocurra y que también utilice alabanza verbal específica, por ejemplo. Y me dio mucho gusto que hiciste tan buen trabajo quedarte sentado en tu silla, y aquí están tu 1 o 2 fichas, lo que hayan acordado de antemano.
Okay, so let's look at some examples, and probably when you see these, you're going to say, oh, and realize that that's what it was.
Entonces vamos a ver unos ejemplos y cuando los vean, quizás se van a dar cuenta de, oh, este es el sistema del que estaba funcionando.
So in this instance, you could say you need to earn 20 tokens, and then you have them in one jar, and then as they earn them, they can move them into another jar.
Entonces, quizá en este sistema usted dice, bueno, te tienes que ganar 20 fichas y tiene que mover las fichas de un frasco a otro.
Okay, and you've probably seen teachers use marble jars in their classrooms, so that's another one. This one's a token board, so James is supposed to stay in his seat, and he's working towards 5 stars, and he gets lunch with a friend. And how difficult you set the goal for your child will just depend on, you're an expert on your child, so you'll know instinctively kind of how high to set the goals. And I'm happy to help anyone that's interested in putting something into place like this too.
Entonces, esta es una tabla donde James se puede ganar ir a comer con un amigo si se mantiene sentado en su silla 5 veces. Entonces, este es un sistema muy claro. Está la recompensa, está la cantidad de veces que el comportamiento se tiene que hacer y está definido el comportamiento. y la maestra está disponible para ayudar a quien sea a desarrollar cualquier sistema de recompensa a base de la habilidad del niño, y usted es el experto en lo que puede hacer su niño y a qué nivel de expectativa usted puede establecer la meta.
Okay, and then the next one's a simple one that you could even create by hand. Again, it doesn't have to be anything fancy, but there's plenty of templates online if you're interested in getting more into it.
Entonces, este es un ejemplo muy simple para enfatizar que no tiene que ser nada complicado. Esto lo puede hacer uno a mano y hay muchas ideas en el internet si uno está interesado en buscarlo.
Okay, so some tips for ensuring the token system is effective is to keep it something positive. Once they've earned the tokens, if behavior occurs, try not to take away tokens. They've already demonstrated that behavior to earn those tokens, so they should keep them. And then make sure that your child has input in the rewards. So before you start your token system, you could sit down with them and make a list of rewards that they would want to earn.
Entonces, consejos para asegurar que el sistema de fichas sea efectivo es que mantenga una actitud positiva, evite el quitar fichas que ya se ha ganado el niño por su comportamiento apropiado, y asegúrese de que su hijo participe dando sugerencias ya sea del sistema, también de las recompensas.
And then try to keep the rewards novel and contingent. Remember grandma's law, if then and only then, so that they're not contacting that reinforcement outside of the plan that you have in place.
Mantenga la novedad y mantenga las recompensas contingentes. Acuérdese de la ley de la abuela, que si pasa esto, y solo si pasa esto, entonces tendrás esto, y trate de asegurarse que las recompensas sean novedosas, que no tengan acceso a esas recompensas en otras áreas.
And then you'll want to update the rewards, the list of rewards. I'm calling it a menu, but the list of rewards with your child periodically, maybe every couple weeks, because preferences change and we get tired of things and humans seek out novelty. So it's important to keep that motivating.
Entonces, es importante mantener que las recompensas sean motivadoras. Entonces, actualice el menú de recompensas frecuentemente. Somos seres humanos y nos aburrimos.
And then if you can, try to choose rewards that are in your child's natural environment. So for example, rather than having them work towards a new scooter, try to brainstorm some incentives with them, like the dinner and a movie night that was in the behavior contract, or a virtual play date with a friend. And there's all kinds of virtual games now that they can go online and do together. There's like virtual Pictionary and Hangman and all kinds of things that you can find online. And if you need help, I think one of the parents wrote in the chat that they needed some incentive ideas, and I'm happy to help with that too. We can put our contact information in the chat. But if you sit down with your child, you'd be surprised, because we always go big, I feel like, when we're thinking about rewards for our kids, but you'd probably be surprised if you sat down with them and made a list, the things that they really value. And it might just be like a special day, like maybe a special 2 hours with you where they don't have to share you with a sibling, or it could be pretty simple.
Entonces, elija recompensas dentro del medio ambiente natural de su hijo. Piensa la maestra que típicamente nosotros tenemos la tendencia de escoger recompensas enormes como una patineta o algo así. Y si se sienta usted a platicar con su estudiante, ellos son muy honestos en lo que les importa. Quizá lo que les importe más es de poder pasar 2 horas con usted en privado sin tener que competir por su atención con su hermano o hermana. Entonces, no sienta que tenga la necesidad de escoger algo grande. Puede ser algo más accesible, algo más natural a su ambiente familiar, y la maestra está disponible para darle cualquier idea. Mencionó un padre de familia en el chat que necesita ideas y ella está muy dispuesta a darles ideas.
But if you did want to if you had a child that needed bigger incentives like that, you could consider doing a leveled token system. So it would be more in depth, and they would have levels. Like level 1 might be a play date in a movie. Level 2 could be I don't know, a trip to Target, pick out a $10 toy, and then level 3 could be, you know, something really big, and you could set the amount of tokens that they would earn for each level. And again, if there's anyone out there that's really having a challenging time and thinks they want to do something like that at home, I'm happy to help plan something like that with you.
Y si es que usted piensa que su hijo sí necesita algo más grande, quizá un sistema nivelado es más apropiado para él. Quizá el primer nivel pueden pasar un poco de tiempo en la computadora jugando juegos. El segundo nivel lleva a una tienda a comprarte un juego de $10, y el tercer nivel puedes una recompensa más grande que sea más importante para ellos. Y sugiere la maestra que si necesitan ideas de cómo establecer estas recompensas niveladas, que se pongan en contacto con ella, que está muy dispuesta a ayudarles a establecer este sistema.
And then again, just a reminder, you want to award the tokens consistently. So as soon as you see the behavior, and then you want to make sure that you're honoring that agreement, the trade for the tokens for the reward.
Y más de recordatorio que asegúrese de dar las fichas consistentemente y que usted honre el que intercambien las fichas para sus recompensas.
Okay, so if a plan isn't working, there could be a lot of reasons for that. And just the tips for implementing that I mentioned, making sure that the reward is motivating enough, making sure that the behavior is clearly defined, making sure that you're holding to that strong contingency. Those could all be reasons why. So before we throw the baby out with the bathwater, we should go back to our plan if it's not working and look at those elements, you know, that we designed the plan in, and think about, is there something in there that we need to change or that wasn't clear?
Entonces, si no está funcionando el sistema, antes de descartar el sistema por completo, tenemos que regresar e investigar si estamos haciendo lo correcto en 3 áreas principales. Uno, que si está bien definido el comportamiento para que usted y su hijo estén claros en cómo aparenta el comportamiento deseado. El segundo es que si la consecuencia o la recompensa es de suficiente valor para su hijo. Y el tercero es que si la recompensa se está dando consistentemente y a tiempo, como acordaron en el contrato.
And remember that we're using positive reinforcement, and the premise behind behavior contracts and token economies is that it's positive and collaborative. So if they don't earn the reward, we stay non-reactive and neutral and avoid getting into a power struggle or debate, and just remind them tomorrow's a new day. You'll have more opportunities to earn a reward. We'll try again.
Entonces, una cosa clave de los sistemas de cambio de comportamiento es de que son basados en lo positivo y lo colaborativo. Y entonces requiere que uno se mantenga neutral, que uno no reaccione. Si es que el niño no gana la recompensa, entonces su responsabilidad responsabilidad es de hacerles saber, bueno, mañana es otro día y mañana tendrás otra oportunidad de ganarte.
And if you sit down with your child and you explain either the behavior contract or the token economy, and they just don't want to have anything to do with it, then you know it's not going to work. And so you can try another behavior intervention. I wouldn't attempt this because the whole reason why it works is the collaboration between the child and the parent.
Y si es que cuando usted se sienta a platicar con su hijo y explicar este sistema, ya sea de cualquier sistema de cambio de comportamiento y su hijo dice, yo no quiero tener nada que ver con esto, entonces no lo fuerce. Estos sistemas simplemente funcionan porque es un sistema colaborativo. En este caso, si no es para su hijo, tendremos que encontrar otra intervención que sí funcione para ellos.
But I've seen this work with some pretty tough kids, and it's used in even like residential facilities, so it can be a really powerful tool for you.
Pero este es un sistema muy eficaz. Lo he visto funcionar muy bien en sistemas o lugares donde los residentes tienen que seguir estos sistemas y son muy eficaces.
So before we get to questions, we also wanted just to touch on self-care for parents. I do, like I said before, I think it's important to recognize how challenging parenting can be. Parenting during COVID, where parents are also being asked to be their child's teacher in most circumstances, is incredibly challenging. So just as other parents and as educators, we want to make sure that we really recognize how hard this is. And it's okay for you to recognize how hard it is for yourself. And so when considering implementing these different strategies, we really want to encourage you to at least try one, even if you're not doing it for an entire day, picking a certain time of day that is the biggest challenge for your family, and implementing it in smaller doses at first, recognizing that you're going to do it the best you can and as consistently as you can, and then continue to get better. I think it's also like we talked
Translate that.
Oh, yes.
Sorry.
Terrible.
Como maestros, queremos enfatizar que estamos ahorita en una época sumamente llena de retos y que tenemos el reto ustedes de no solo ser padres de familia presentemente, pero sino también siendo los maestros de sus hijos, y queremos alentarles que reconocemos esto como personas en el sistema educativo, pero también queremos alentarles a ustedes que reconozcan para ustedes mismos que esto sí es sumamente difícil, y que cuando estén pensando en implementar este sistema de comportamiento, que escojan una cosa, escojan quizá el tiempo de día que sea el más difícil para ustedes, el de más reto, y que comiencen de manera pequeña, que mantengan la consistencia y que aumenten el sistema poco a poco.
Thank you. So in order to model appropriate coping skills, calmness, and confidence, it really is important to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. And that can mean different things to different parents. It may be making sure that you have time to exercise or go for a walk, or to engage in a hobby, or just to have a few minutes for yourself. I know when my kids were younger, one of the things I did to take care of myself was I would get up a half an hour or an hour early in the morning so that I could have coffee by myself. That made a huge difference. That small thing made a huge difference in my ability to stay calm and confident. So I would think about that. I also wanted to encourage you to find an ally. Not every parent has a partner at home that is their ally to help support with some of this stuff. So if you don't have a partner in the home, it may be partnering with another parent, just making an agreement with them to implement something different or try some of these things, and having the other person be available to talk about how it went or to problem solve, or sometimes just to commiserate with if your child didn't earn the reward and you have to, you're anticipating having to manage the fallout from that if they don't earn the reward. So pre-planning and having a partner or an ally in that can be really, really helpful for you. Also, in terms of
Cindy.
Yes.
Sorry, I need to
Thank you. I'm glad you interrupt.
En términos de poder modelar apropiadamente como padres de familia el comportamiento que queremos de nuestros hijos, es sumamente importante acordarnos que tenemos que cuidarnos de nosotros mismos. Y como padres de familia esto a veces es muy difícil, pero tenemos que encontrar formas de cuidarnos, y quizá esto sea cosas como el hacer ejercicio, ir a caminar, tener tiempo un poco de tiempo para uno mismo, hacer algo creativo que a uno le guste. La maestra menciona que para ella le ayudó mucho cuando ella empezó la rutina de levantarse temprano, de media hora hasta una hora temprana, para que ella pudiera tomar su café sola, y esto le ayudó mucho a mantener la calma y tener confianza con sus hijos. También sugiere que uno llegue a encontrar una pareja, un compañero de apoyo. A veces no tenemos un compañero de apoyo en casa, entonces tenemos que encontrar a otra amistad, a otro padre de familia que quizá funcione como nuestra pareja. Alguien con quien podamos nosotros platicar acerca de cómo estamos implementando este sistema, cómo lo estamos intentando, platicando de cómo nos va, alguien que nos ayude a resolver un problema si no está funcionando el sistema bien, que nos pueda ayudar a tratar si tenemos problemas con los niños y nos resulta de tal manera como quisiéramos, pero es importante planear de antemano y tener una pareja.
Finding an ally may also mean partnering with a grandparent, going over your plan to implement some of these strategies with a grandparent can provide you with, again, a partner, someone that can also reinforce the same things that you're working on with your child, and also someone that you can problem solve and lean on as you try and implement some of these new parenting strategies.
También quizá tener una pareja, quizá quiere decir que uno busque la pareja en un abuelo o abuela. Es alguien con la que usted puede repasar las estrategias que está implementando y pedirles que ellos hagan lo mismo cuando sus hijos estén con ellos. Y también es alguna persona con la que puede platicar, a discutir los sistemas y ser de apoyo o hacer preguntas.
So you guys don't have to share out, but before we get into some questions, we thought it would be helpful for you to just take a minute and think about what we've talked about and kind of solidify in your mind some of the things that you may want to try with your children.
Y antes de que tomemos las preguntas que tengan, queremos que ustedes tomaran un momentito para enfocarse en lo que han escuchado esta noche y pensar si hay un área en la que usted se quiere comprometer a intentar una de estas ideas.
I'm going to stop sharing. That'll allow us to look at the chat. If you have questions, you should have the availability to unmute yourself, and you can ask your question. You could also type it in the chat and we can answer it that way.
Si tiene cualquier pregunta, usted puede prender su micrófono o también lo puede escribir en la...
I'm going to add my email to the chat too. Maybe you have questions that you're not comfortable asking in front of everyone, but you'd like some more help or clarification. I'm happy to be a resource for you.
I'll also add our emails to the slides that'll be up on our website. They'll be under the student services section and in counseling corner where we have all of our counseling resources. So you also will be able to find our contact information that way. If anybody has things that they're working on at home that you wanted to share with the group, you're welcome to do that. You could also email them to Sonia and I, and we could share them out.
Entonces las maestras están poniendo sus correos electrónicos por si ustedes quieren hacer una pregunta, quizás una pregunta que la quieren mantener más privada y estaríamos más cómodos de preguntarlo por medio de un correo electrónico. La directora también menciona que esta presentación y sus correos electrónicos estarán en el sitio del internet de la escuela, en el área de los servicios estudiantiles, lo que le dicen la esquina de los consejeros.
And then on our last slide, we have some parent resources that you may be interested into. The Child Parent Institute has parent resources, and they also have parenting classes. Captain is a website. They have a Padlet right now for parents for distance learning, and they have everything in English and Spanish as well as several other languages. Captain is a site of resources that was developed for children with autism, but many of these strategies and practices, all of them are evidence-based practices, and they work for all children. So if you check out that website, don't be put off by seeing the word autism, and it's good for all, good interventions for all children. And then there's also parent training modules through Captain where it takes you through a video. And if you do those, I would suggest there's one called Parent Implemented Interventions. That's very good. And then there's also one on reinforcement that would be helpful.
I'm gonna let
La maestra
Bobby
menciona que en la presentación que van a poner en el sitio de internet hay una página de recursos para los padres de familia. El recurso de Capitán, que se llama Captain, está enfocado en niños con autismo, pero enfoca a la maestra que uno no debe de tener miedo de esto porque las estrategias se pueden aplicar a cualquier alumno, no tiene que ser nada más alguien que tenga autismo, pero tienen también ejemplos de estrategias y videos para estrategias que uno puede encontrar en estos recursos.
Bobby, did you want to ask a question or contribute?
Well, actually, I wanted to share two things that we did. One, which really helped our mornings. The order wasn't happening in time. I got it. Sorry. I got a child trying to get me to show things right. And they weren't getting up in the morning, and we were chasing them around for each thing multiple times. So we did this list, and we've laminated it. And so each child got a list that's their morning routine, and it says they've got to eat, they brush their teeth, get dressed, put on their shoes and socks. This is when we were going to school. Do their hair and get their jacket ready. And then as they got things done, they could tuck it up inside. I don't know if I'm doing this in a way that you can see, but you tuck it up inside, and then when you're done, you untuck them. And it was all of a sudden they could see what they had to do, and they could see that they were making progress. And if they got into the chair so that we could do hair by a certain time, they could have tablet time while doing their hair, which is a huge bonus to us because we have one child with fine curly hair. So that was one thing I wanted to share that was a cool tool for us to discover. And then you've talked about the token system, and we've done an incentive system. So you get ready on time for school and you get 5 points. You do a good job in your first Zoom, and that is you're on time, you stay in your seat. If you need a break, that's okay, just say something. And you try. You don't have to get everything right, but it's try, and when you can, participate. And Zoom is really hard for participating. But you do those things, you get 5 points per Zoom class. And then at the end of the night, you do a good job getting ready for bed, you can earn another 5 points. Those points go towards the things that we've went to target. We've got a whole variety of things. And 1 point is essentially a nickel. So if we get something that's $1, you need 20 points. And so they're learning about money. They get to see it on the chalkboard, the points that they're getting. They're adding it up. So we're making it part of their math and understanding money. They can see the thing that they want. It's right there. As soon as they have the points, I can hand it to them.
That's great, thank you. One of the things I would imagine is really helpful about having the chart where they tuck the stuff in is then if kiddos are not, you can observe that they're not doing what you were hoping they would do, that, oh, Eve, did you want to translate that? I'm sorry, did it again.
Oh, I didn't know if you wanted to, that's okay. So,
Yeah, you can just summarize, that'd be great.
La madre dio el ejemplo de lo que ella hizo en la casa cuando los niños estaban asistiendo a la escuela en persona. Estaba teniendo problemas con los niños haciendo lo que le estaba pidiendo. Entonces hizo una lista visual donde cada paso de lo que tenían que hacer, vestirse, cepillarse los dientes, la chamarra, los libros, estar listos para salir, y los puso en un sistema donde los niños podían meter el papel cuando habían acabado su trabajo. Entonces eso cambió mucho la efectividad de prepararse los niños, y ahora presentemente ella usa el sistema de fichas en Zoom, donde no les pide exactamente que todo lo hagan exitosamente, pero que hagan por lo menos el esfuerzo de mantenerse sentados en la silla mientras está presentando la maestra.
Thank you. I was just going to say, when you observe that your kiddos are not doing what you expect them to do, that having that kind of chart can allow you to just defer them back to the chart. That now I see you're not ready for school, check your chart. If you're not sure what to do, you can go back and check your chart. And that, what that does, if you have that other chart or something else to refer them to, it kind of takes you out of the power struggle because you're asking them to do what the chart says. And you're not having that kind of face-to-face battle that they need to go back and check the chart. And over time, they kind of rely on the chart more than they rely on you to be prompting them and prodding them, which ends up increasing their independence. So I'm glad that's worked well for you.
La directora comenta que algo que ella nota con el sistema de tener un sistema donde los niños pueden checar lo que tienen que estar haciendo, que esto saca la cuestión de estar en una lucha de poder, porque le puede decir, bueno, ¿no estás listo? Bueno, checa tu lista. Y entonces esto lo quita a uno de estar en medio de la lucha de poder.
Any other questions or anything that anyone else wants to share that's worked well for them? I know it's getting late. So if you go to do this, or you're still not sure where to start, or you go to do this and you're not sure what to use or how to start, I really encourage you to get in touch with your child's teacher. You're more than welcome truly to get in touch with Sonia or myself. But our teachers use these kinds of systems every day as well. So they would have some resources for you, or they would get in touch with either Sonia or one of our school psychologists to help you out. So I don't want not having the right form or not really being clear exactly how to start to be a barrier for you getting started on one of these strategies. So please don't hesitate to reach out, if not to us, to your child's teacher. And again, that's something that they work on and deal with every day. So they would definitely be able to support you in that or connect you with someone who can.
Y si usted está listo para implementar un sistema de como lo que hemos hablado esta noche, les recomendamos muchísimo que hablen con su maestro. Ellos usan este tipo de sistema todo el tiempo. Ellos tienen muchos recursos. No sienta usted que no puede empezar porque no tienen los materiales apropiados para establecer este sistema. Los maestros tienen estos materiales y les quieren apoyar a comenzar esto, y también está la directora y la maestra Schiffer para apoyarlos. Entonces no tengan ninguna razón por la no tratar de empezar. Tienen el apoyo de la escuela y especialmente de los maestros.
Okay, and then look for this on our website, and our contact information will be up there as well. Thank you so much for coming. Enjoy the rest of your night, everyone.
Good night.
Buenas noches.
And